Hi there. If we're to believe Christian writers like Irenaeus in his book, two-part book against the heresies, then some Gnostic cults seem to have degenerated into almost barbarism and just general degeneracy. What I call degenerate cultism seems to have emerged. Which he sort of goes into, and other writers go into in great lurid detail. But it seems, apart from the subtle philosophy about the sanctification of all things, by which you look at something in a sanctified or spiritual way, so that very mundane things of life become of spiritual significance, and even things which are considered sort of taboo in our society are looked upon as having some kind of sacred energy, which is probably getting a bit wacky, really. I suppose some groups took the view that if you can't beat the demiurge, it's best to join him, or at least worship him in a sort of passive kind of sense. I'm reminded here of the days of the campaign for nuclear disarmament in the 1980s, and the CND was sort of Trotskyites used to latch themselves onto CND, and they used to bring out these little leaflets saying "best read than dead," which I took to be a threat. In fact, you either disarm or you end up dead. But it's best to actually just capitulate to the Soviet Union because it's a workers' paradise and everybody be wonderfully happy, and that's much better than fighting a nuclear war. So definitely, is it paranoid of me to take that as a threat? I don't know. Anyway, if you can't beat them, join them, sort of thing. So if you can't beat the demiurge, then join the demiurge in his creative power and his magnificence, and worship his power and magnificence, certainly. But I mean, in the second part of this lecture, I just want to say that you can't actually join the demiurge, and you certainly can't worship the demiurge. We'll come back to that later. You certainly can't beat the demiurge. That's for true. Because this is his hunting ground, the world as we see it. In fact, the world's right up to the etheric level. These are his stomping grounds. These are his. This is his domain, and he won't be defeated on his own ground, basically. And the world belongs to the demiurge, or pretty much, well, all the worlds belong to the demiurge. And we can but seek survival, cultivate hope, and through certain practices, I suppose, through introspection, we can gain a measure, a knowledge of transcendence, of gnosis. So that's basically the only things that we can actually do in this world as it's presently, or permanently constituted, or constituted as in this form. As of course forms change, even though the energy doesn't. Yes, and I've mentioned here about the second law of thermodynamics, which I mentioned in a previous lecture, and the recycling of matter. Basically, everything just keeps going round and round. It's a sort of dishwasher going round and round. Well, like a washing machine, I suppose, and everything is just repeat and rinse, really. And that's not being too cynical about it. In fact, it's being pretty realistic about our situation, and so yes, I mean, it's true. You can't beat the demiurge. If you can't beat the demiurge, well, there's no if about it, because you definitely can't. But then the answer is not to try to join the demiurge or to worship the demiurge. On the other hand, which I do feel some of the texts of Gnosticism open up the possibility of worshipping the demiurge and using the demiurge power to extract love, luck, and loot, or to attract love, luck, and loot to one's own self or group or something like that, which is obviously is bordering on sorcery. And quite a lot of nasty things that you have to do in order to become a sorcerer. Things which dehumanize you and humiliate you and demean you as a human being, demean the spirit within you, and this idea also that that certain things can become sacred activities as a result of seeing them in a different light. The light of gnosis is one of the big sort of attractions of some Gnostic groups. But let me say this, that calling your group is the name by which you call your group is very important. Because if you call yourself something to do with sex being sacred, you'll get a whole lot of sexual perverts trying to join your ranks. And so you've got to be very careful, actually, what you call your particular Gnostic group. And that's all I'm going to say on that particular matter. So in part 2, we'll have a look at why it isn't possible to either join or worship the demiurge without coming out far worse state than you would if you just simply tried to survive the demiurge and tried to ignore the demiurge as much as possible and try not to be distracted or dismayed or dispersed by the demiurge, because that is the power, the three heads of his influence, as it were. And if you can cultivate hope within yourself, minimal living, moral living, and try to look for the transcendent element within your deep meditation, within your consciousness, then that's basically all you can do.